those are state and local issues. We never gave the federal government the power to do this, and they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on that, let alone the hundreds of billions of dollars on things that are not infrastructure at all. That is not going to change until we overrule the punk politicians in Washington, D.C. that continue to steal from our children. And the only way we're going to do that is if we do something that Joe Manchin and Joe Biden have no say in. And my buddy Mark Meckler can speak to it better than I can, but that's actually using the Constitution to save the Constitution. We need to follow the Founding Fathers' vision of how to overrule the federal government, and we do that through the states.
Mark, I'm going to let you respond to that. We do have the president talking about this, so I want you to listen to what he had to say about the compromise, and then I'll have you respond. Here it is.
The human infrastructure that I talk about. And that we'll see what happens in a reconciliation bill in the budget process. If we get some compromise there, and if we can't, see if I can attract all the Democrats to a position that is there. But they're gonna move in a dual track, and that's all I say. But I want to.
What's your response?
And basically what he's saying is this is a scam on the American people. I agree with what Rick said. This is just theft from the American people if they spend this money and from our children. But more importantly, this whole press conference is a scam. 1.2 trillion, quote unquote, bipartisan. First of all, anytime that I see Cullen standing up there, I see Romney standing up there, I see Cassidy standing up there with Sinema and Manchin and Tester, I know we got a scam on our hands. They are committing generational theft. But we don't even know what this bill is, to be honest. They laid out, quote unquote, the framework. I've looked at the numbers. You can't even tell what they're really going to spend money on. This is how they do it. They present it as we're all unified. We're going to steal your money and you won't know it.
Well, speaking of a scam, I want to move on to our next topic, which is Vice President Harris visiting the southern border today. Meanwhile, we have Tennessee senators and a congressman calling out the Biden administration in general. Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, and Chuck Fleischmann. They're saying we want transparency from the Biden administration. So get this. These Tennessee lawmakers say the administration has resettled more than 18,000 migrant children into the interior of the U.S. with little to no tracking and little to no records as to whether these sponsors can actually take care of them. So we don't know who these sponsors are. Are they family members? Are they just people who are vouching for them? How do they locate them? Are they foster parents? What's happening with these kids that are being sent across the country and people are flying in planes next to them? Tom, I'll go to you again. With this situation, we have Vice President Harris going down there today. She's not going to the heart of the issue. She's going to El Paso. Kids are obviously a number one concern, especially for these senators and this congressman. What is she going to say about all of these children who are essentially in cages, whether they want to admit that or not?
Yeah, to a great point. I think about they're in plexiglass cages instead of iron cages, right? Steel fence cages. So this is a typical, using the word that Mark used, this is another scam. I'm surprised Vice President Harris isn't at the Canadian border trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. She's not in the part of the border where the real problems are. She's down there just so she could check the box, get down there before former President Trump goes there and draws even more cameras to the crisis that Biden and Harris have created at the border. They inherited a solid border, a secure border, and they totally torched it. Now they're trying to hide it from the American people, the consequences of what they did.
Rick, it does seem like they're trying to hide it. Now we're hearing today that the Border Patrol chief is being told he has to resign or relocate. And this is all because there's a crisis at the border, like it's a big shock. Why are we suddenly getting rid of somebody and making him the scapegoat when every other country that's involved in this has said this is because President Biden came out and said the border is open? What is going on?
And let's not forget, it's not just Republicans that are criticizing Vice President Harris and President Biden over this. Henry Cuellar, a guy that I served with in the state legislature years ago as a congressman from Texas, a Democrat that has clearly said, what are you doing going to El Paso? Go to Del Rio. Go where the problems really are. In fact, I went to school an hour and a half from Del Rio. It used to be a wonderful place to go visit. It's become a border war. It's not just a crisis. It's a war right now. And to think that these children that we're sending out into the country without even knowing for sure where they're going, who they're going with, are we actually participating in? Is the federal government somehow enabling the cartels with child sex trafficking with some of these things? I mean, the lack of transparency, The lack of this vice president being willing to go to the border until now, after months and months of hounding from all of us, saying she should be there to actually see it firsthand, and she's still not going to go to where the real problem is. And the people that really want to solve it, like the Border Patrol agents, we're going to fire the ones that actually speak up and speak the truth. It's an embarrassment for us as a country, but for the world as well. This is a true crisis, and Donald Trump was on the right track to solve it. Elections have consequences.
Mark, I want to dissect a little bit of what Rick said there, because that was a powerful statement. We don't know if these children are being sent to traffickers, if we could potentially, maybe even unknowingly, be helping this process along in the country. And we know that political decisions get made to make yourself look better. So we had this whole conversation when Trump was president that, wow, these kids are being separated from their families. Could there potentially be a situation where, to avoid that look that you're separating children from their families, that they could actually be providing these children to sex traffickers?
Yeah, I'm going to go one step further. I would say that this administration is guilty of openly and intentionally aiding and abetting the sex trafficking trade, the drug trafficking trade. They're openly aiding and abetting the coyotes that are raping women along the way. When you throw your border open, when people in foreign countries know the border's open, all they have to do is come across and they'll be taken in with open arms, and then they come. It's an incredibly dangerous journey. We know that people are dying along the way. We know that a large percentage of the women who are traveling are being raped along the way. And we do know that children are being sex trafficked. And when I say we, I mean President Biden, I mean Kamala Harris. They are complicit in and guilty of engaging in sex trafficking. And one last thing, the cartels are making hundreds of millions of dollars trafficking people. These are some of the worst human beings on the planet, and an immense amount of money is being funneled to them because of the actions of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
Mark, I want to go back to that really quickly, because you said they're making hundreds of millions sex trafficking, but this has really opened the border to a massive drug trade as well. I mean, the cartels have become very powerful this year, haven't they?
They have, and it's become very easy for them to run drugs across the border. And I know folks down there, I live here in Texas, as does Rick. I know folks down there, ranchers on the border, they said the influx of, as they put it, really bad people across the border, obviously carrying drugs, what we call mules, carrying packages of drugs across, very obvious to the ranchers and the communities that live down there. This is enriching the drug cartels. Those cartels, by the way, have their own standing armies now. They have the highest level of military equipment. And we should be very concerned about the illegal military force building on our border among these cartels, funded essentially by the permission of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
Well, we are anxious to see what the vice president has to say once she makes her visit to one of the safer areas on the border. But, that's what she decided to do. Thank you very much, panel. Mark Meckler, Dr. Tom Borelli, and Rick Green, we appreciate having you on the show today. Everyone else, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about why Biden is being blasted on social media when we return.